We're back, everybody, with this 80s rewind pilot episode thing that we are doing. And we currently have 2 in the bag. We did, remind me, guys, my broachy boys.
Toidles.
First, it was
Toidles.
Uh-huh.
Second, it was some kitty cats.
Meow.
Thundercats.
Oh, was SWAT Cats 80s or was that 90s?
No, 90s.
Oh,
Bummer.
damn.
Is it post Turtles world?
But today, we're going into some OG 1983, I think it was, the release of the first G.I. Joe, a real American hero. And
Yes.
The Pyramid of Darkness, Part 1.
I have a quick anecdote with G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe was one of my first toys as a kid. I didn't know what it was. Nobody told me. I never watched the show, but I got a G.I. Joe. And the second I got it, my sister used it for her Ken doll. Like, used it as a Ken doll.
Oh, yeah.
So I never got to play with my G.I. Joe.
So you had the OG-ass G.I. Joes, the pre-TV show G.I. Joes.
Were they as the size of Barbie dolls? Yeah, that's the one I had, yeah.
Yeah. Or they might have still made them. But, like... Because, like, I had a bunch of my brothers, too, from the 80s, and they're, about 3.5 inches.
Yes.
Like the action figures.
I have seen those ones, too.
I had those. But I also had, like... excuse me. A couple, like, of the big boys, too. I had a bigger one like that of Snake Eyes, I believe. Like, the OG
sick.
version of Snake Eyes. And then, same with, excuse me.
Fuck.
One of my dad's. I think I had one of my dad's G.I. Joes, the OG ass ones. Because that was the thing. That toy brand had existed since,
The war?
whatever.
Like the 60s or something?
Right after
Something like
the
that.
war?
60s, yeah.
Ever since the war.
Yeah, pretty much. So,
Yeah, I do remember the one I had not being all that great. It didn't like come with a gun or anything, or I didn't have a gun with it. It was just a dude with some combat fatigues on. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of seems to, I mean, not being around for like the actual inception of these toys, I'm not sure whether they were explicitly. I think when they were first released, they were just more supposed to be like, hey, here's like, yeah, dolls for boys that you can dress up as military figures, and they have little accessories and stuff. But then, when the 80s rolled around, they brought this this like mythos to it. If I'm, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. The fun fact of it all, and this holds true for Transformers whenever we get there, is a lot of the stuff we know about them, about the different characters or whatever, were made up by the people who wrote the comic books at Marvel for them. So, like, for G.I. Joe, for instance, all the, like, pieces on the back of the cards for the action figures, like all the bio stuff and whatever, was written by the guy who's still technically, well, not technically, he is still writing G.I. Joe today. Larry Hama is his name. And he is an old Vietnam, I believe, veteran, comic book guy, and he wrote the G.I. Joe Real American Hero comic for Marvel for most of its run, and then on and off as it went to different publishers. Now he's currently writing it again after wrote it for a long time at IDW. IDW, along with Transformers, lost the rights for those, and then now Robert Kirkman's Skybound through Image has the rights for those. And one of the things they did was they created their own universe, but they allowed Larry Hama to keep going on his story. So he's at issue like 300 or something of the comic.
Well, that's really cool.
But yeah, he wrote all the stuff that we know about them that's on the back of the action figure
Right
cards
now,
and
like
everything.
the mythos, he like
from
came up with like Storm Shadow and
Yeah, like Snake Eyes and
Yep.
Storm Shadow's history and all this.
Yep.
I'm not super familiar with G.I. Joe lore.
Neither
or
am I.
what
I
to
just
call
know
it,
the
but
cool ones. I just know the cool toys.
the cool ones.
Um,
Those are probably the only two, besides like Cobra Commander. The Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes are probably the only two names I could actually tell you from like anything G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I got like
Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum.
Destro. Destro, which was the dude with the metal
Metal
mask.
Mask. I remember his toy too. Yeah, I had his toy.
Duke, who was like the head GI Joe guy, like their field leader guy. Scarlet, the red-haired lady, works closely with Snake Eyes. Oh, and Zartan, because I used to watch this show a bunch. Zartan, he like he shapeshifted or something, or was able to disguise himself.
Well, guys,
That's about
I think we should
That's about
dive into this because this will be one for the books for me because I've never seen this one.
G.I. Joe.
It's the pilot episode, so it's obviously put into two parts.
Yeah.
We'll probably just watch the first part, see where it's going, and kind of.
What we've done so far with the other one.
Right.
So.
So, without further ado, let's jump into G.I. Joe, a real American.
Real American hero.
Let's do it. Yo, Joe. Well, we just finished G.I. Joe, a real American hero, and I got so much whiplash from what was going on. I don't know about you guys, but there was just a lot happening.
So
What I can-
heroic.
What I commend with this is that they got to the look at all the toys you'll be able to buy right away. It's just all the vehicles, all the characters, all the everything. Check
You got the bad guys. You got a ton of bad guys that show up.
Yeah, dude. Cobra Commander. My boy.
He's a great villain, I would say. His portrayal in the show really.
He's scheming, but he's also just a straight up coward.
He's
great.
ruthless, but he's very much a coward, and it shows. But he's like, he always weasels his way out of a situation pretty quickly.
He always wheezes his way out of a situation,
That
into
too.
a situation. You want to know what's funny too? Is just think about this Cobra Commander being JGL.
Yeah, right. Boy, gone home.
10 things I hate about you.
So, what did you guys think of the show? Were you experiencing kind of like a, I don't know, sensory whiplash?
It is, but like it makes sense for a kid's action show. That's just all over the place, and look at all this cool shit, right?
Yeah, especially the 80s.
Yeah.
You can see where this serves as the inspiration for a lot of parody that came after.
Yeah.
With that like
Parodies, not
frenetic,
serious.
parodies, nuts. You're right. With that frenetic pacing and that sort of just like these characters are sometimes they just don't stop quipping.
It's so
or they're,
corny.
like,
I was gonna
being
bring that up.
overly-
Like, it was all one-liners. Like everything they said.
yeah.
It's like you just have to show personality. To me, there wasn't really story. It doesn't need it, but there wasn't any like story or plot. It's just like bad guys doing bad things. Let's go stop the bad guy from doing bad things. And then each
It's 100% what it
each
is.
squad member, minus Snake Eyes, he's just the silent protag. But like other guys, they just do quips. Like the whole time, they just show off a little bit of their character or their personality a little bit.
Their gimmick.
Their gimmick, yeah, just that. And I mean, it's
Why
goofy.
you want to buy that one toy? Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, that one's cool, and that one's cool. Like we didn't get to see all of the Joe squad, but like we saw a good amount of them.
And as the show keeps going, there's episodes that, focus on a certain group of characters or whatever. This, obviously, they're just introducing everything right now.
Mhm.
But as it goes on, there's more episodes that focus on smaller groups of characters and, stuff like that.
And
Because I did used to watch this on, like, Cartoon Network at, like, 4 in the morning or whatever the fuck it was
Yeah.
back in the day.
I know Cobra Commander has like his headquarters, and the G.I. Joe squad do they have like a bunker base thing too?
Yeah, that's what Cobra Commander was shooting at once he took over their space base.
Because that's also like part of like the toy ploy, is what I'll say.
Because Flint and Lady J were down at the regular base, where Duke and Scarlet were up in the space base.
Right. But like those are things that obviously is a trope for
I'm
these
sure they made
shows.
toys of 'em.
Is make the
Yeah.
toy, make the base, so you get like here's the Cobra base and here's the GI Joe base, and you can have these wars with them and things like that. But that same thing with like Castle Grayskull.
Thundercats, they have their
Yeah.
where they're at, and Mum Ra's got where he's at. And, everybody got that essentially.
Turtles got the sewer, and then the
But
Technodrome.
I do think, well, there's a, out of all, like here, we're talking about specific things here, and I think that out of those three, like the things that we've watched so far, Turtles probably had the most reasoning behind some of this, because like you said, like this just starts and it's like, hey, here's all the stuff you can buy, and there's no exploration of like, hey, here's how. It seems like everybody in the world should be like familiar with this like terrorist organization of Cobra and like this battle and all these things, and so there's no explanation of like who the Cobra people are, why there's a specific like Joe unit to deal with them, who any of these people are. They just show the hell up and are doing their thing. And it was the same thing in Thundercats. There's like not really much explanation of like who Mum-Ra really is or any of this other stuff. They get a little bit of like, oh, they're coming from this planet, but we don't get to see that planet or anything. It's just like, oh, adventures are starting. Here's the toys.
There was a
go ahead. G.I. Joe starts as a toy company already. I mean, you did have, I think, the G.I. Joe Real American Hero #1 comic book came out in like '82 or something like that. But and that's much more kind of got more actual story to it, but it's definitely, whereas Turtles, it starts as a comic first, so there is story to build off of first. Even though they did, I think, have a toy line out before the show started, but not much. So
well, I was thinking about this earlier today, like G.I. Joe specifically. Being somebody that did not grow up with this show or the toys, I just wonder, because I know that they're like you said, Tyler, you have some prior experience with it. You Broadshow, your brother it was like a hand me down to you.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if this kind of thing, like, how much of it would remain the same if it were to be done today, like a modern G.I. Joe, or how much of it might change to be something else,
Right. It's definitely like, I mean, if we're even just looking, it's different than what you're saying, but if you're just looking at the current popularities too, like Transformers is actually pretty popular still. Especially with the current comic book that's out, and plus even though it didn't do well, there's a lot of people who really enjoyed Transformers 1 and came into Transformers stuff from there, so Transformers is still doing really well. But I have had, like, when I'm at the comic shop and stuff, there's kids come in and they'll be with their parents and like, oh, Transformers, and then they'll look at the toys next to them and they'll be like, what's G.I. Joe? You know what I mean? So like, the property awareness isn't the same as it used to be. But
no, but I can
see G.I. Joe was fucking huge for a decade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just like knowing what is, at least with my kids and what I see kids of that age like being popular with them, with it was like there's been like a progression where it's been like Paw Patrol, and now Spidey and Friends is kind of doing a similar thing, where it's like these characters, they're starting to do it with these more known franchises, but they take these known franchises and they make like the perfect way for these characters to be helpers and to like teach these lessons. And
right,
it's like you know that Fisher Price like Little Tykes, that like little squat cutesy style.
Yep.
I could see something like G.I. Joe maybe fitting into that, where sure, they can be military figures, but if they're like a specific unit where they go like do rescue, or they're like building a wall someplace, or building like homes or schools, or and maybe the Cobras are. It's not about the conflict and the violence, but just more again about that style of like, hey, we're here to help teach lessons.
It's been like, it's different, and I know I can kind of know your sensibilities of where this is going, because when we were growing up, we had these conflicts that were more to like a certain extent like really dynamic, with the good guys being really good and the bad guys actually being evil, and like having those cliffhangers. But in today's sensibilities, the Spidey and Friends and Paw Patrol, the bad guys aren't really that bad. Like the good guys teach the bad guys a lesson, but the bad guys come back every episode to like do something that's borderline nefarious, or just like want to cause like a little bit of mischief. But then like they learn like, something. It's not like they change their ways. It's just like the bad guys are taught a lesson and are like, I'll do better next time, and then but like this, like Shredder and Cobra Commander and Mumra, they're all just evil, and they're just like menacing and creepy.
Well, and the part with this too is it's, obviously it's a lot of gun violence and stuff like that, so it's obviously makes sense why we haven't been keeping up doing G.I. Joe stuff in pop culture for, there has been some, but they're always like more teenage aimed, and like mini series and stuff like that, you know what I mean? They're not.
Yeah.
If you did G.I. Joe now, it'd be like on HBO Max with like a pretty bloody reimagining of it.
Transformers, you can get away with a lot of stuff because they're robots, right? And there's just robots fighting robots, so it's whatever. But like there's a bunch of dudes with guns and shit.
I really can see a version though of like the guns are all so kid friendly, where it's like, and the thing about this that you guys already pointed out is like almost every character on both sides have their own gimmick, and it's like they have no personality, so it doesn't matter who they are, it just matters what they do.
Right.
So you have Duke, who's like the organizer and leads everybody, and you've got Snake Eyes, who his thing is about like
Ninja Man.
Same thing in like Paw Patrol, where it's like Rubble. His thing is about like building stuff, and so you can have their guns just be like, oh, this just fires nets, and this one just sprays like an adhesive goo.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yep, they all have like a weird gimmick.
But they use them in constructive ways too, and like there's because this is just like people. They do weird things with shows. There's like a Sesame Street show for kids where it's like for some reason Elmo, Cookie Monster, and Gabby, I think, are like mechs, and it's like there's no overt reason why they need to be mechs, but they just are.
Fantastic.
And it's super popular, but it's like it's that kind of thing, you just find your niche of how you're gonna
like reimagine,
because this was not so much about like teaching a lesson. It was just these continuing adventures and buy the toys.
Well, that's what the after episode thing for like then they teach you the lesson at the end.
They'll do the knowing is half the battle.
I was gonna say
the knowing is half the battle stuff.
Did we get one of those on the like Tubi presentation of G.I. Joe?
I'm sure. I don't know. I haven't been episode 2 because that's technically the
right.
Oh sure, yeah, you might be right.
But it might have been a thing they added later because, like, they're like, well, but this is violence and whatever. And they're like, okay, we have to add some educational element to it.
And they all involve, like, kids learning something. Like, hey, man, hey, dog. Don't bite me.
Look at that super generic, like, nondescript ATV design with a couple red pieces bolted on for
looks
accents.
like a toy.
A pew-pew. Yeah, it just...
It's a toy. It's got some torpedoes on it. It's got lasers. Got some other gun that's not shooting anything above the laser.
There is a slight amount of like earnestness to this whole approach of things where it just wears itself on its sleeve. Like clearly it's an advertisement,
Yep.
and it's really one of the least offensive things. Like if I was a parent in the 80s and this was on, I'm sure that there might be other things that I would be more worried about. Like I'm not worried about my kid being exposed to G.I. Joe. I might be more worried about my kid being exposed to like Rambo, because that's real people and
Right.
not horror.
Rambo did have an animated series, so
Sure. It's just easier.
there's a lot of things that
separate
shouldn't
the
have had
violence of,
animated series.
Yeah.
Rambo, RoboCop,
You know
like
what I
all
mean.
those guys. Yeah, but yeah, I get 100% what you're saying.
This is yeah. Very very silly.
I'd say it's over the top, silly, action packed. Just it's just candy for the eyes for little kids to like sit there and be like, turn your brain off, and just enjoy these lasers and quips and goofy scenarios.
I don't know that this is something that I would want to watch on my own time, even just like having it on in the background. I think I might enjoy like one episode every now and then or something, just to like and a random one. I don't need to watch every single.
Exactly.
Or like we said before, like somebody like just put together the greatest hits. Let me see those.
Exactly. That's a
say-
call out to everybody watching, following this. If you're a diehard G.I. Joe fan, maybe you have some recommendations for like the best episodes, top 10, top 5, whatever. Let us know, because
like,
I'd do that. I would do
honestly. What was like a seminal episode?
The comic book is genuinely good from the 80s. One of the coolest issues of single issue comic books you can read is issue 21, I believe, of Real American Hero. It's called the oh god, what was the official name? Is a silent interlude, and it's a
Snake Eyes?
It's a Snake Eyes focused issue.
Can you find that image and post it in Discord, and I'll put it up on screen so people can see it?
Yeah, and it's a completely silent issue. There's no words.
Oh,
that does sound
and it's
awesome.
all Snake Eyes breaking into the Cobra base to rescue Scarlet from Storm Shadow.
Oh fuck yeah!
Yeah, it's tight.
Makes me think of Wolf when he fights Genichiro atop the tower in Ishida Castle. I mean, there's been obviously multiple iterations of Transformers. There's been another shot at Thundercats.
Yep.
There was even a couple of different shots at
There's
He-Man.
other G.I. Joe too.
There are like 3 other ones, I think. Or no,
There's
there's probably like 3.
yeah, there's stuff from the 2000s and stuff
So
like that.
So maybe just like that would be kind of interesting to see too. Is like a small collection of like 3 to 5 of this original series and 3 to 5 of one of the others, just to see some differences of how they. Because I'm sure in one of those 2000s series that you guys are talking about, or in one of the other ones, they try to do more about like character-centric episodes and development and things like that, and continuing storylines. So
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
this is very surface level, and that's okay.
Hell yeah.
Doesn't need to be much more than that.
Yeah, I would say
Done.
we'll do a full breakdown of all these. So if you're following along, we're going to be doing the tier breakdown after we watch a few more. I mean, probably quite a bit more. We'll see how that goes.
We'll all be sobbing, breaking down in tears.
We'll be breaking down, throwing our hearts out there.
Why? Why can't they make cartoons like this anymore?
There's something that I do love, the charm of this, and we touched on it a little bit with today's sensibilities, where everything is computer generated, or computer graphics, and really stylized and almost, I don't know, cost efficient. Maybe it's easier for them to create the assets and just manipulate them in a graphic space, other than like
100%.
drawing and things like that.
Yeah.
But you have to appreciate the times when they took effort into hand drawing these panels and hand drawing these cells and I give it props for that, because there's a lot of dynamic. There's a lot of dynamic with the framing of these too, because today things are in 16:9. This was obviously 1-to-1 or 4-to-1 or 3-to-4 aspect, and
4x3, yeah. Well, and it's pretty fluid. It's not like I that would be an interesting thing, is to maybe, like, I don't know how we would do that. If we go through and somehow create some sort of scorecard, like animation, pacing or plot, or, like, you know, and then we grade them on, like, for each of those metrics, we rate them like 1 to 5, total them up, and then but because there has been a variety of quality, maybe in animation styles, or even just styles, and yeah, like, what do we think is more pleasing? This, Turtles, Thundercats?
exactly. I think we'll get into those discussions later, but yeah, those are things definitely to look about, like our criteria of how we can break these down, and what sticks with us as we go through, like memorable things about each one. Definitely will come into play when we actually put these on a grid. But yo, stay tuned. Next time we're going to be doing He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Let's go, Joe.
Jojo.
Yeah, do they say, why don't they say, I always thought they said Go Joe. They say
Yo Joe. They say
Joe?
Jojo. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. That's a little strange, but I'm not gonna,
You know, docket points.